G'day Reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Today we've got a special tank for a special client. So we're going to get all of our gear in and we're going to do a maintenance video on this tank and we're going to show you why it's such a special tank. So this tank is a 5x2 by 20 inch tall shallow reef tank. This tank belongs to a special friend of Gallery Aquatica by the name of Sam, who helps us with a lot of our event organisation. And so the tank is going really well. Today we're here for a maintenance visit. We're going to do a water change and have a bit of a look at the tank. And there's also two creatures in this tank which have been breeding, which are very interesting, that we'll talk about in just a minute. So first of all, we'll have a look at the componentry running this system. As you can see, this tank is a rimless tank, and so the lights are really on show. So we have 3 Radeon Gen 3s running this tank, and they're doing a beautiful job. They've got the perfect spread for what we want. And directly below, we have this really cool do-it-yourself net cover, which I'm going to take off. Perfect for stopping fish jumping out, which is a problem sometimes with these rimless tanks. They look excellent, however fish are inclined to jump out. Now that we're looking down onto the tank, you can see we have, well, it's a bit difficult to see, but we have a Gaia 130 on this side, and there's a little standard wave maker on the other side. So relatively light flow, but it perfectly complements the rockwork and the types of corals that are dominating this tank. Something very interesting about this system is the overflow. Now you can see this weir combing leading towards what is almost a coast-to-coast Calfo overflow, and it's beautifully hidden behind the tank, and there's a couple of strips of the cabinet which also hide it from its side view. We'll have a closer look at that in a minute. So let's have a look underneath the tank at the equipment that's running this system. Opening up the beautiful 2-pack cabinet, we have a sump which is fed by these 2 overflows at the back. The majority of the water going into this skimmer section. Now, one of the things that we've been tasked with today is to have a look at the skimmer. It hasn't been skimming quite right. As you can see, it's been overflowing a little bit. So we're going to have a good look at that and see if we can work out what's going on. From the skimmer section, the water flows through this refugium. Now this is also due for a bit of a clean. You can see we've got this stagnant water on top. Probably need a bit of an algae clean as well. So we'll want to just ensure that we can clean that up a little bit. It's a bit of a mess. And then the water flows through to the back left section, which is where the return pump pumps water back up into the top of the tank. So we have a Halia 500A, which is the chiller for this system. We have an Aquamatic dosing pump at the back, which is dosing Seachem Fusion 1 and 2. There's a 57 watt UV twist UV sterilizer, and there's an automatic top-up system. I think it's an Aqua 1, feeding water into the sump to keep the water level and the salinity stable and exactly where it needs to be. So as I've said before, the corals are really thriving in this tank. So we have on this left hand side a beautiful hammer garden. Every single hammer is a slightly different color, so we've got beautiful contrast, and it really fills up this section, looking sensational. We've also got an interesting little cluster of green mini maxis. Now these have actually been multiplying, and so you can see a couple have moved up the top here and a couple have moved down. So that's a really cool piece. And there's lots of zoas. So this is a zoa garden that Sam has made herself, and there's a really nice mix of zoas That's a piece that Anya would be really happy to see. She loves her zoas too. More zoas up on this main section of the structure. There's that really cool swim through between the two bits of rock that really adds a bit negative space to the system. Cool torch up the back there. There's a few acros which I was just commenting before are showing some sensational polyp extension, and the color on the acro is really good too. One of the advantages with these rimless tanks is that because there aren't any cross bridges, the light really is unimpeded by when getting to the corals, and so they really do show their best color. And the blue on this stag is just incredible. That's such a nice piece of coral. So there is one special coral in here which I really want to talk about, and that is the gold stem torch. Now, this colony was actually a lot larger about probably 6 months ago or so, and at one point there was, I think it was a temperature spike, or there was something which was really stressing out this torch, and it did lose a few heads, but in the process of losing the heads it actually spawned in the tank, and there was a heap of little gold stem torch colonies that popped up all over the tank. And unfortunately quite a few of these have disappeared, but there are still some of these little sexually reproduced torch colonies in the tank. So we'll have a look at one of those in a second. So it's just here, and you can see it's right on the edge of that bit of coralline on that rock, and it's doing really well. So hopefully it will grow to a large size, become multiple heads, and maybe it will breed as well and spawn in the tank, and we'll have even more gold stem torch in this tank. So we'll put a little bit of food in this tank and we'll have a look at the fish. So we've just got a bit of mysis. There we go. So you can see we've got a blue spot rabbitfish. They're all over there now. We've got a beautiful gold rim tang. He's the biggest fish in the tank. There's a very nice yellow tang as well. We've got the long-nosed hawkfish. There's a school of these coral cardinal fish, or gold line cardinal fish, which are only new this week, but they're doing really well. They look really good in there. There's a cleaner wrasse, of course. We have a pair of monsoon glow fairies. So this is the male down the bottom, and there's a female over here. We've got, I think it's a pair of clowns. I can see at least one. There's a red line cleaner shrimp. There's a coral banded shrimp, which is an interesting combination. A lot of people worry that they can't mix different shrimp in a tank, but I've actually never had a problem doing it. The coral banded shrimp is hiding under the rock on this side, and the red line cleaner shrimp is normally on the other side of the tank, and so it seems to be totally fine. There's also at least one, there's a pair of gold-head sleeper gobies, which are a beautiful fish, and they can be a little bit problematic in the way that they will move the sand around, and often they will dump sand on corals, making it difficult for the corals to survive. But the advantage of having them in the tank is that they really do help to turn over the substrate. So definitely all the fish and corals in this tank are going really well. So it's time for us to do our maintenance service, I think. So as always, we're going to start our maintenance service with some water tests. So it's always important to know what the salinity, the pH, we always check the temperature on the chiller, calcium KH mag, nitrate phosphate. All these levels are very important so that we can ensure that we do the maintenance service without risk to the fish and corals. And also so that we know if we need to make any adjustments to the dosing pump. So we'll quickly do our water tests, and then we'll do a water change on the tank. So before we start the water change, it's very important to turn off two components of this system. The first is the chiller, and so that's just back here. And the second is the UV sterilizer. Right, so that's turned off. Now, this UV sterilizer is a UV twist 57 watt, and so it's rated for a tank significantly bigger than this. But the reason why we have this UV sterilizer on the system is that this tank did suffer from quite a severe outbreak of white spot. And so we've put this UV sterilizer on the system specifically for the purpose of eradicating the white spot from the system, and it's done a great job. All of the fish are totally free of white spot, and it's especially important to note that this tank has got a gold rim tang in it. A gold rim tang is a very susceptible fish to white spot, and so the UV sterilizer is critical to help keep the fish, especially the gold rim tang, free from disease. So I'm going to have a look at this protein skimmer and see why it's over skimming. The first thing I have to do is to take the cup off so I can take it out to clean it. So what I'm going to do is, this NIOS has got a very easy valve system to reduce the level that the skimmer is skimming at. And I've just opened the valve, which will drop the level, and I'm hoping that that's all it will take to fix the overskimming problem we have with the skimmer. So it's time to do the gravel vac. So I'll get our siphon started. And what I find really interesting about this tank is how little detritus there is in the substrate, and it's all because of these gold head sleeper gobies stirring the sand up, turning it over. So I'll just do a really quick gravel vac. So we're round the side of the tank at the moment, and I want to point out something really interesting. It's these turbo snails. This tank has got an incredible number of turbo snails, and they are multiplying out of control. And it's not such a bad thing because they're easy to remove, of course, and they help with keeping the algae under control. But every time I'm here, I remove a good, I reckon, 30 or 40. They're up in the corner here too. You can see this. They get on the overflow. They get in the pumps. They can cause a problem, particularly with wave makers like MP40s and Gaias and such, where they can get inside the pump and cause a problem to the rotors or the impellers. So, but they're great for algae, that's for sure. But also, whilst we're here, let's have a look at this cabinetry, because it's really quite smart the way that this has been done. We've got the cabinetry which goes almost hard up against the wall, and it hides beautifully the Kelfo overflow. So when you're looking at the tank from the side or the front, it really, all you see is the cabinetry, the tank, and what's in the tank. You don't see the plumbing or the workings. So it's a really smart design, and Kelfos are really good overflow systems too. So we've just started the siphon on our main drainage hose, and we'll use this same hose for filling up from the IBC on the back of the Colorado straight back into the tank. So it's pretty quick, only takes a few minutes, and that is draining now. So I'm just polishing off the glass with a wet towel. Wet with fresh water, not salt water obviously. And we'll put our cover back on, and that's our job for today. So as you can see, we have a beautiful shallow reef tank with mixed corals, beautiful fish. We've just done a large water change on it and everything's looking really good. So thank you so much for watching Gallery Aquatica TV. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and happy reefing. So that's our video for today. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe as well. We'll be putting out videos every week showing a new tank with new products. There's going to be lots in all the videos. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and keep on reefing.